So, Sunday, March 15th, 2020, COVID-19 and divorce. Hard to believe that was almost 4 months ago. We all did sort of an emergency conference call trying to figure out all the changes that were happening almost hourly. I went back and listened to that podcast. There's a couple themes that I think all of us were experiencing. First, safety first. We're worried about our cases. We're worried about our friend Rich Harris in Colorado, who was ahead of the curve with respect to illnesses that had affected some members of his team and people close to him. We were worried about closing our offices. That was stressful for a lot of us. We were worried about client service. And we were also very worried about managing our teams. We all have a number of lawyers and support staff that work for us. I want to welcome our listeners on Family Law Now. I want to welcome our viewers on YouTube. This is COVID-19 and Divorce Part 2. We're almost 4 months since that original podcast. Ontario, Canada is starting to phase out the lockdown depending on what region you're in and what your infection rates are. With each phase, we experience a little bit more freedom in terms of some of the things we can do outside of our homes. This looks like it's going to be the new normal for a while. I know lots of people hate that saying. The new normal seems to change every day. But before we take a deep dive into the approaches the four of us are taking, let's just do a brief introduction. I want to introduce our guests. Maybe everybody can tell us where their offices are, what the size of their firm is, and maybe a short COVID-19 update. Brian Walters, you want to start?
Sure. Hello from Dallas Love Field Airport. There's actually two airports here, and I'm getting ready to catch a flight. So just wanted to do this before I did that. Walters Galbraith is my firm. We have offices in Texas, Houston, Austin, Dallas, and we have 22 employees. We just added 4. And so I'll be with you until they start to board my plane.
Thank you for joining us. Brian Galbraith, you want to go next?
I'm Brian Galbraith. I'm owner of Galbraith Family Law. We have offices in Barrie, Newmarket, and Toronto. We have 16 lawyers and I don't know, about 10 support staff. And we only do family law. And it's been quite an adventure. And we've started to open up our offices a little bit and when it's necessary to meet with clients in person. And our staff is coming in every 2 days a week now, so that we have no more than 50% of the people in the office at any one time. So yeah, we're doing all right. It's starting to open up a little bit in Ontario, but we're still cautious.
Thank you, Brian. Billie?
Hi there, this is Billie Tarascio, and I am the owner of Modern Law in Phoenix, Arizona. I've got 5 attorneys and a total of, I think, 15 of us. And we're a little bit in the hot seat right now because Arizona wasn't necessarily slow to lock down, was quick to open up, and is now, I think, as of yesterday, has the highest infection rate of anywhere in the world. So we are adapting.
Yeah, that's a big change because 4 months ago, you're pretty much in the clear. There wasn't much of any COVID going on in your area.
Yes, and that has certainly changed. And it has meant that, over the last 4 months, there have been many, many different policies to who can be in the office and when and how, and then, reacting to what the public wants as far as, some people demanding to come into the office and demanding to sign things, via notary when they don't have to be. So there's been a lot of management of both the employees and the clients and the opposing parties.
Yeah, and a lot of fear of technology as well. I'm Russell Alexander. I, like Brian, practice in Southern Ontario with several offices. We have a team of 20 plus or minus, depending on whether we're hiring or people are going off on a leave. But let's get into it. How are you operating your offices differently? You know, video calls, electronic documents, signatures. Billy, I'm going to throw this one at you first.
Well, thankfully, the firm was set up so that everyone could work from home. So it took only a few weeks to really adjust and to be fully functional. And productivity wise, we're actually more productive now than we were before. Revenue numbers have hit, records for us the last 2 months. So we're in a position to take advantage of the need that people have to see family law attorneys who are structured and set up to work in a way that works remotely. So, we didn't have to learn how to use electronic documents or portals or communicate with clients virtually. So in that way, we've really been able to take advantage of some things that maybe some other firms were not able to take advantage of.
And I know we're going to talk about this, but also I think puts you in an advantage in terms of recruiting as well.
I think so, yes. And we are looking to recruit. We've been looking to recruit for some time now and haven't had a lot of luck with that, but I'm not in a hurry because the team is functioning so well. The last thing I want to do is bring on somebody who's not a great fit.
Right. Great stuff. Brian Walters, what are you doing differently these days? And how are things in Texas with respect to COVID?
Well, I count now we're at the 4th different metric that we're using to measure the severity of this situation. And I've stopped making predictions about when things are going to change or when the focus is going to be different. I keep reminding myself that this is an election year and nothing makes sense in an election year, at least in the United States. So we're going to just keep going as we go. We had sort of a similar situation to Arizona. And so now it's gotten to be more restrictive again. And I don't know if that's going to change or what. We're just kind of rolling with it. And actually, my story sounds a lot like Billy. We were ready to do this. We didn't see it coming, but we were ready. We're structured for this anyway. So this actually was very easy. I don't think we lost more than a day. I don't even know if we lost a day. And we did have less work, I think, in kind of late March to mid-April, where I think just the whole world kind of froze what they were doing, and the courts, clients, all that kind of thing. But with family law, you can only put that off so long if you don't want to be living with somebody or married to somebody. So we've seen the same thing as May and June and continuing this month have been record months for us. And we've seen our competitors really struggle. And so, for better or worse, that's the situation that we're in here.
All right. Thank you. Brian Galbraith, changes that you've been experiencing?
Yeah, we sent everyone home, I think it was March 12th, including support staff and lawyers. And that was pretty easy for us, like Brian and Billy, because we'd already been working remotely and had a lot of programs in the cloud and a remote server set up and all the infrastructure that was necessary to move home we had in place. So it went well. Just like Brian, our experience was similar, that we had a kind of a dip in the number of new clients coming in the door and initially, and some of the existing clients were really reluctant to move forward because there was a sense that, well, this thing is just going to last a couple of weeks and then we'll go back to normal. And so that didn't happen. When that didn't happen, people started to realize, well, we're going to be stuck in this situation for a while, and then they started to take action. But the last couple of months, it's been an upward curve for us in the sense of more clients, more consultation, new clients, and more work. And we just hired an additional lawyer to cope with the surge of new clients that we anticipate will continue to happen. So Yeah, it's been interesting. You know, I just moments before this call, a lawyer emailed me and said that the agreement had been signed and she would be dropping off 4 copies of the original so that my client could sign them and sending me a digital copy. And I said, I don't really need the originals. Just send me the digital copy. I'll get that signed digitally and we'll be done. You can keep those originals for whatever purpose. Because I don't see any, you know, we're practicing law a little bit differently now and adjusting to this new reality, and it's going quite well. But
Yeah.
some people are a little bit slower to catch on. And like Brian said, some of our competitors, you know, just froze and stopped practicing and stopped serving their clients. It was just unbelievable that they would just back away like that. And I think the Law Society up here will have some calling some people on the carpet for their poor service during this time. But we've been able to continue on.
Yeah, I think the big change is the move away from paper. And I think the Ontario court is starting to take note. It's such a paper-based system, it completely ground to a halt. We did hire somebody like Brian, and initially a lot of our competitors shuttered their offices and laid off staff, and I can understand why. Our staff, save and except for one person who needed to take a leave, have been more efficient than ever. They don't have to commute. They don't have to do their hair. They don't have to get, you know, I think we're more efficient. We're getting clients in for consultations the same day, where before they'd have to wait 2-3 days. Lawyers are doing it by Zoom. So I think it's made us a much more efficient team. So we kind of touched upon billings. You know, I think we've all experienced a bit of a dip, and I think we're seeing a bounce or a bit of a surge right now. But what would you say, Brian? You think divorces are increasing, or you think it's the backlog that has been put on hold for 4 months? What are you seeing out there?
Are you asking me? Which Brian? Sorry.
I'm asking Brian Galbraith. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of an increase because of some pent-up demand that initially people didn't have the ability to move forward with their separations and divorces. So there's some pent-up demand, but there's also so much uncertainty that some others might be a little bit reluctant to make a big change in their life. So it's interesting. Yeah, we're seeing our courts here in Ontario just starting to open up now to non-urgent matters. And so I anticipate that we're going to see a big increase in clients coming out to our offices.
We were doing a lot of settlements via Zoom during the lockdown. And what I was seeing from some clients was underlying frustrations just kind of came to the forefront with the homeschooling and both spouses working from home. They just realized they don't want to spend the rest of their life with their particular spouse. Billie, are you seeing a notice in the volume of divorces?
It's hard for me to say if the volume of divorces is up. Many of the cases that seem to be coming to us have not been divorces. It's third-party rights, like modifications, people who are not in good shape, and emergencies that have come out of that. That's what we really have seen a ton of.
How about Brian Walters? Are you noticing a bump, or what are you seeing with respect to divorces?
Both, speaking over the past 2 months, both the bump in quantity and conflict level. I was in an in-person hearing yesterday, and I walked out of the courthouse with the court reporter, and she told me sort of same thing I've seen, is that they've seen more heavily contested, bitter hearings in the past month than they had probably all of last year. And I don't know if that's because you're in this, this pressure cooker at home, or because that causes conflicts or issues that wouldn't exist otherwise. But it's noticeable, and I'm getting to the point where I'm having several of those a week now, usually by Zoom, but also in person. It's picked up quite a bit. My law partner is even busier with them in Austin. He's just just overwhelmed with the level of them.
So drilling down on some specific issues, in Ontario, the court effectively closed except for emergency matters. And then there was sort of a whole new area of case law in terms of what's urgent, what's not, what do we do with custody, visitation, access, people overholding access or denying access. And so there's some jurisprudence that came out. We were quite active dealing with those types of cases. Have you had the same experience, Brian?
I assume you're asking me. I'm not sure.
Brian Walters.
So we moved away from the only emergency situations by mid to late April, because there are just too many other issues that aren't emergency but need to be dealt with. So it's still, if you have an emergency one, you can get I think a little bit quicker hearing, but it's become almost a moot point. They're just letting us go back to the way we were. We're just doing it mostly by Zoom, 95% by Zoom. There's a few courts that are doing it live. So for us, it's pretty much back to life as normal. You're just by video most of the time.
Right. Billie, how's your experience been with respect to custody access, visitation?
The court came out, or I guess the judges came out with written guidelines that were very helpful, that answered a lot of these questions proactively, and that said to lawyers and clients, here's how we're going to rule on issues related to access, related to social distancing. And that really helped us offer some certainty to clients who all had these questions. And then what we saw was our courts did really rule consistently with regards to these guidelines. They did not treat COVID as an emergency. They were not going to grant an emergency, hearing regarding somebody's concern regarding COVID. And then the other thing that our courts did was kind of like Brian, very, very quickly, they adopted video hearings, and we're almost all to video hearings at this point. And it looks like, at least in Arizona, what I've heard and what the judges have said is that we're going to stay that way. So no more will we ever do a non-evidentiary hearing in person. And even the evidentiary hearings are going really smoothly via video.
Mr. Galbraith, your experience with custody and access issues so far?
In Ontario, they were doing hearings by telephone conference call until just recently, and now they've moved toward starting to use Zoom. And it's only been urgent matters related to, related primarily to COVID and custody and access issues. And but now they've started to open it up. So we have a lot of files that are cases that are just waiting for it to open up, and I think it's going to be a real backlog. And the judges are only hearing a limited number of cases each day at a conference or at a motion, and so I think it's going to be, even though it's technically being opened up, it's going to be slow moving and a tremendous backlog in our court system. So we do a lot of collaborative practice, and we do a lot of negotiation and mediation, and those lawyers in this province who do that sort of out of court work have been very, very busy, and I think that will continue as well.
Brian Walters, I know you're boarding in a few minutes. What steps have you taken to help your clients and your team during all these changes?
So we've been very flexible with our employees. The ones who really feel like they need to come into the office, which is not that many of them, we've made it safe and we've given them available space that they can do that if they really need to. For the clients, it's sort of the same thing. We've given them the option of, do you want to, if you want to come in, where we're going to be very reluctant to do that, but it needs to be on very, very safe terms. And there really aren't that many people that want to. This kind of reminds me about, or similar to telemedicine, where you can go now see your doctor, which for reasons unknown to anybody, I think now, that was resisted for years. And now it's it's the same thing. Why would you used to think I had to go see I need to see my doctor, and it was the same thing. I need to go see my lawyer, and we've been pushing back against that for years, just partly because Houston's, 100 kilometers north and 100 kilometers south, and 100 kilometers in each direction from central Houston, and a lot of people don't want to do that. But now that we can kind of say, well, that's not our, it's just not our preference or policy. Once they do it once, that's not difficult for them. They don't come in to do in-person consultations anymore, which was kind of the way most people did things. So a lot of that's changed, and people have, it's kind of, Zoom is a little bit like, if you do it once, it's not that hard, and then you'll be fine. There was a judge, one of the older judges in Houston at the end of May, who I had the first Zoom hearing was with him, and he was complaining at the beginning, I don't like this, that's not the way I want to do things, but now he'll do them all the time. He did that one, and it was easy, and off we go. So
just getting over the fear and the unknown, and now you don't want to go back. But I want to just pick your brain for another minute here, Brian, because I know you're leaving, and then we're going to get to Billie and Galbraith. Predictions for the future, Brian Walters, or in closing comments?
Yeah, I already swore off of them, because I've been, every time, like I said, the other metrics that were dominating discussion went one way. I said, oh, well, we're out of the woods, and then another one gets replaced. So we're just going to roll with it, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody could have predicted the past 4 months, and so we'll just do our best for our clients and staff, and I bet you we'll, when we talk about this in a couple of months, we'll probably all be very positive about it, like we are now, at least for ourselves. So I will sign out. I want to thank everybody for inviting me, and I hope to see you guys at the next one.
Thank you for joining us today. Have a safe flight. Billie, if I can turn to you next, are you seeing much action or business in terms of support claims, alimony, changes because people are losing their jobs?
No, surprisingly, we're not. There have only been a couple, but the majority of issues that people have been coming to us for are not financially related.
And how are people getting a divorce during the pandemic in your community? Like, is the court still accepting the process?
Yes. So our court is now fully functional and actually moving cases faster than they ever did pre-COVID. We're seeing temporary orders hearings be set just very, very quickly. So I think the court has gotten more efficient.
And are those done electronically or in person?
Almost all hearings are done electronically,
right,
via Zoom, via video.
So I can say Brian now. Brian Galbraith, what have you noticed with respect to child or spousal support issues?
Yeah, we haven't seen as big a surge in that area as we expected, but I think that will come, and because everything is so up in the air, people haven't pursued them. That's my feeling at this point. But it's so hard to guess. Our guess is that there will be a surge of people seeking to reduce their support obligations moving forward, but we haven't seen a lot of it yet. The biggest issue that we see are parenting issues, and parents that are trying to use the fact that the court system's shut down to minimize or prevent any time with the other parent, and those sorts of things. So those have been the most difficult issues.
And I wonder if we could just flesh this out a bit. We talked a bit about it earlier. Brian, is your office open, closed, remote, a blend of both? How are you returning to the new normal?
So what we did is we've been completely 100% remote. Saying that, I would go to the office for about 5 minutes once a week to sign checks or do whatever was necessary, and people would drop in to deal with any documents or the mail. But many people didn't go to the office at all since March. But we've opened it up a little bit now. What we've done is said clients cannot meet with a lawyer in their office. We have 2 rooms that are designated for meeting with clients, and what we did is we cut a hole in the wall between the two rooms and put some glass in so that there's a window. And the client sits in one room and the lawyer sits in the other room. And so that there's 2 desks between them and a sheet of glass. And that's the only way. And everyone's asked to wear a mask, because clients are asked to wear a mask when they enter the office. And we're using that right now as what we call for a signing room. You know, if people need to get together for signing purposes. But I thought there would be a lot of demand for that when we opened that up, and there has not been. People have been using electronic signature, and it's gone well, and so they just are going to stick with that, I think, at least for now. And then our support staff, we've said if you could come in 2 days out of the 5, 2 days a week, and we stagger it so that we always have somebody in the office, but less than half of the normal number of people in the office at any one time. And the lawyers are also only given a couple of days a week that they're able to use the office if they want to, just to minimize the number of people and they make it so that social distancing is more feasible. So I said we've sort of opened our offices, and I see this as I see this as the way forward for us for quite some time. I think it's a safe way of practicing, and it's respectful of some people can't manage the technology. Some clients just don't even have a computer or a cell phone, and so we need to be able to see them and do it safely, and so we've set that up. But I'm encouraging people to minimize that and only as necessary, and let's try to stay remotely, working remotely. It's worked very, very well, and it's just safer for everyone. And you know, people love it, Russ, because some of my lawyers have a long commute. They're coming from Toronto, or it might be an hour and a half drive to work, and they like to be able to avoid that by just going on Zoom. So yeah, I see that as being the case for a year or 2. I don't know.
Some of my staff are more introverted, and they didn't like interacting with doing the water cooler talk to begin with. So this is heaven for them. They get to stay home. But you were kind enough to share with me, Brian, you also created an office manual or protocols as well.
Yeah, before we opened it up, we put together our policies as to how to handle incoming paper, how to meet with clients, and you know, how to clean before and after clients, so that everybody pitches in and makes sure that the space is left clean. When things are sanitized, an office is sanitized, we put a little sign on the keyboard to say this is a clean office. And then the cleaners, if they come back in a couple of days and no one's used the office, they'll see that the sign is still on the keyboard, and they won't need to touch that office. And so we've instituted that as a way of staying focused on what needs to be cleaned. So yeah, we're pretty vigilant, and we feel like we need to. You know, a couple of our lawyers have babies, and you know, I live with a senior citizen, my wife's uncle, and we need to make sure that we protect everyone as much as possible.
I thought you were going to say your wife there. Billie, you open, close, remote, blend of both. What's going on with your team?
We never shut the office to our people. We always allowed our people to come in, but never encouraged them to. We had, you know, rules about people who could not come in, you know, if they had any symptoms whatsoever. But there have been people in my office who have access to the office for whatever they want. Either they want to get out of their house and work, or they want to, you know, do a Zoom meeting from our office. They've been able to do that. I've been much more careful with people outside the office, restricting clients' access to, by appointment only, and then requiring the use of masks. And now I'm only allowing clients in the office if they get specific approval from me, because there are some times when that's what everybody wants to do, and I'm willing to figure out a way to make that work. But I'm trying to make decisions that protect everyone and also respect what it is that people want to do. So it is a challenge, and it is a moving target.
You want to avoid the scenario where the lawyers are working remotely and the intake team or the clerks are on the front lines meeting people, right? That's kind of an unfair setup as well. What we've done at our office is we've broken into 2 teams, and team 1 works Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Team 2 works Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah. Team 2 works Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you're working with the same team each time, and then it rotates each week. We do that for a number of reasons. It gives us the space to socially distance. Everybody has a workstation, and then there's an empty one or two. Frees up our boardrooms. And also, in case a team member gets sick, it's not going to infect the whole office. It's just going to infect that one team. And we're also, like Brian, we're set up remotely. So we've got sort of a hybrid approach where we're trying to get back to some kind of new normal where we're physically seeing each other in a safe way. We started our team lunches this week. So I had a lunch with both teams on a patio on two different days, which was great. It got us out into the community. The patio was set up with all the safety protocols, and it's been beautiful weather in Southern Ontario, and it was just great to be physically present with each other, even at an appropriate distance. So I think that goes a long way as well. The Zoom meetings have been great. We've been doing regular Zoom meetings, but having that, physical connectedness, even just being in the same office, I think really does a lot for team morale. And we've also implemented cleaning and safety protocols similar to what Brian has done. So let's just move on. So Billie, what steps have you taken to help your team or your clients transition through the pandemic? And I guess it's really starting to build up right now in your community in terms of people getting sick and the spread.
We've just tried to put out as many resources as possible to the public. So we're creating a lot of videos and information about how to prepare for your Zoom trial and, pitfalls that we've seen, how to make sure that you guys are looking at the same exhibits, how to prepare with your attorney, how to set up your house, how to remove distractions. So we're really trying to proactively empower and communicate clients on all things that impact them. What does the court say about the COVID parenting guidelines? So every time the court gives us information, we're passing that along to clients in a way that is catered to what matters to them. And then as far as employees, it's been, okay, well, what do you need in terms of lighting? What do you need in terms of equipment at home? Let's everybody pick a new chair from, one of these 3 chairs. And then also just trying to stay connected and nurture their emotional health by adding a couple agenda items to our weekly meetings just to check in with one another to see how everybody's doing emotionally.
That's so important. One of the questions we ask all team members is, how's your technology today? And it's surprisingly, everybody has different issues for different reasons. The internet in one particular part of the community could be slow, or their laptop could die, but just sort of fleshing out what goes wrong, then we can all kind of have the same kind of sort of group think in terms of troubleshooting it. But I love the idea of doing the videos for your clients. It's just fantastic. Brian Galbraith, how about you? What are you doing for your team and your clients?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of videos as well, but I like the topic of how to prepare for your Zoom hearings. That's a good one, and I'm going to work on that in the next week or two. Thank you, Billie. One of the things about the staff and the law is that we've said to them, if you need something for your home office, here's a budget. There's $250 that each of you can spend. If you need a second monitor, a different desk, one lady wanted a stand-up desk so that she could stand up or sit down while working, and so we got her that. Most people didn't really take advantage of it, but I thought it was well received as a gesture of saying, you know, it is hard to work at home, and we want you to be feeling good and comfortable. Talking about, there's been some research on how productive people are when they're working remotely, and what the research that I've seen say is that managers like it when people are working remotely because they're more productive, but the employees don't really like it because they miss the social aspect of work. And so the recommendation in the article I read was that it's ideal if the employees have a couple of days in the office and 2 or 3 days at home, so that they have that social aspect. So we have a once a week meeting with everyone by way of Zoom, and that's when we talk about policies and procedures and updates on the court system and technology and all those sorts of things. We do that business end of it. And then we started a thing where we do a quiz. And I make up a whole bunch of questions that I email out to everybody. And then I send everybody into breakout rooms of 4 or 5 people. And together they have to come up with the answers. And then we come back together after about 15, 20 minutes and see which breakout room gets the most points. And they're just silly questions. And just after Canada Day, they were all related to Canada and our people and history and so on. But other quizzes have been on different aspects of divorce. What's the divorce rate, and who's most likely to go through a divorce, those sorts of things. It's just been a really fun way of connecting socially for a few minutes with some other people from your office. And I think clients, I should say my staff and lawyers really look forward to the quizzes. It's just fun.
That is a great idea. We do something called a Kahoot, which is it's online and everybody can see the screen, and then they answer the quiz with their phone. And so you can see the results in real time. It's kind of fun way to break up the day. Brian, in terms of having your staff return, is it mandatory or voluntary in terms of coming back to the office?
It's mandatory. We haven't had any resistance to it because we've kept it to a minimum, and they saw all the precautions in place. And as my office manager said, she sure feels a lot safer at our office than she does when she has to go grocery shopping or do any of those other tasks out in the community, because we have so many precautions. So yeah, everyone was happy to come back for a couple of days of the week, and essentially we have a setup like yours where it's you're with the same people on the same days each week, and it's been okay so far. And we have so few clients coming in. You know, it's worked out really well so far.
Yeah, our team members who come in like it because they're away from their kids, and also the technology is good, the internet connection's great. So I think they enjoy that part of it. What we have done, we hired 2 on-call counselors to provide mental health counseling for our team. The firm pays for it. I don't know who gets the counseling or why they're getting the counseling. So that's a resource as well that we've provided. And our team members have been accessing it, which is great to know, because something that's easily overlooked in all this is how people are handling the change and the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah, we offered that as well. And I haven't received a bill from the counselor, so I don't think anyone has availed it. But it's a really good gesture, and I think it's the right thing to do. And I was copying your initiative because I thought it was such a good one, and I hope other people make that sort of resource available.
we didn't get a bill for 2-3 weeks, and then I got 3 in a row. So it's just a block fee. We pay it, no questions asked, but it's good to know that the service is being accessed. So let's move on. This is great information, guys. Thanks for sharing. Before we move into marketing, any final managing tips that you may have for other law firms or business owners? Bill, you want to go first in terms of management?
I just think that everyone is individual. And so one of the most important things that I do is meet with them individually, once a week or once every other week, because people need different things and people are in different places. And we do have the ability as an employer and as a firm culture to really support one another. So really taking the time to check in, I think, is pretty crucial.
Are you doing that in person or via Zoom?
No, via Zoom.
Brian, any management tips?
Well, I think it's important to communicate clearly with people and help them anticipate any further changes that are coming their way, and be open to feedback and see how people think about different ideas that you might have, and see what they feel about it. So that, at one point we did created a survey monkey and sent that out to all of our staff and lawyers about what they felt would be appropriate if we started to open the office up. And we got some really good feedback. And we also kind of set the stage for it to happen by way of using the survey. People were knowing this is going to happen eventually. So that was helpful. But we also discovered some small things that were easily corrected, technology problems that we could address. So that was a nice tool, and I think it was appreciated by everyone at the firm.
I've been kind of pondering this idea. I've read about these tech companies that are suggesting they're happy if their employees never return to the office. So I guess if you have team members that are meeting certain targets in terms of receipts or however you measure productivity, I'm wondering if that would be a reward to say you never need to come back to work. You could just participate via Zoom. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but it's an idea that's floating out there.
Well, I don't see a problem with that regarding the lawyers, but when it comes to the staff, it was brought to my attention that there was only 2 or 3 staff members that were coming in to deal with the papers that or whatever needed to be dealt with in the office when we were shut down. And they came to me and said, it's not fair that we have to do this always. That we don't like to have to leave our home, and there is an element of risk involved in doing that. And so that's why we said, everybody should share in that responsibility. But if we do it right, we can minimize it to 2 days out of the week for each person. But for the lawyers, if they come or not, it doesn't matter to me as long as they're billing and providing good service to their clients. So I'm open to them staying out of the office.
Billy, have you given any thought to this idea that maybe some people never need to return to the office?
I have never required people to come into the office. So it's always been optional for people to work remote as long as they were able to get their jobs done. And that was previous to COVID, that was harder on the staff than it was the attorneys. With our new model, our office manager is the only person who has to be in the office, and she handles anything that has to be done in the office, and she likes coming in. So as far as I'm concerned, if people want to continue working remote and the clients are getting what they need and the team is getting what they need and they're productive, it's going to work fine for me.
And I assume those remote team members are still participating by Zoom or some other electronic means with the staff.
Yes, everyone is required to participate to the same extent as if they were in the office.
Right, great tips. All right, so
I was looking at buying a different building last fall, a bigger building, so that we'd have more space for more people. I'm sure glad I didn't do that. I've heard of lawyers who are renting space, and they're not renewing their leases because they just realize they don't need the bricks and mortar to be able to function well. So yeah,
it changed quickly. I'm still paying for a boardroom I just built and designed for larger collaborative practice meetings. And now we use it to social distance when clients come in because we've got a 16-foot table. So we put one client at the end and slide the documents across the table. But yeah, it certainly has changed quickly. So let's just talk about marketing for a minute, and then we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank Billie and Brian for all their time today. What's working for you, Billie, in terms of marketing right now?
That's always such a hard question because I never know exactly what's working with marketing. Being present, being seen, putting out relevant content, putting out newsletters is probably the thing that's working the most. We have gotten, at least at first, a real increase in leads from social media, because when this whole thing first went down, people were spending so much more time on social media than they were previously. I feel like that's evened out a little bit. The other thing we've done is we've really advertised to other attorneys in the area to let them know that we are open and we are able to help them in the event that they're not able to service their clients at this time. And that has created a lot of referrals as well.
Interesting. Never thought of marketing to other attorneys. That's great. Brian Galbraith?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work with Facebook, and that's been great, and doing a lot of videos, and they seem to get attention. Recently, I finally got around to putting together a MailChimp account and downloading our opened and closed cases, the emails to that, and send out some emails to some clients, and it's generated some work as well. So I've never tried an email campaign to my own clients, but it seems to have generated some work. So I think Google paid ads are generating, continue to generate clients as well. But you just have to. I think everything helps. Everything I seem to do generates some clients, and so it's just a matter of trying a variety of things and being lucky. And if you're in people's face enough, they eventually will get the idea that this is what you do and come knock on your door when they need your services.
Email is a great idea. We run 2 newsletters a month. One's designed for clients, so have client-specific content. The second group is for professionals, and so that would be a more high-level analysis in terms of what we're talking about. And then we have a group, I think, of 700 professionals we email monthly. And MailChimp has great stats. It'll tell you who's open, who's unsubscribed, how many clicks each topic is getting. So it's an effective way. I'd say probably the most effective form of marketing during the pandemic for us has been video. Whether it's a short video using a smartphone or a more in-depth video using professional equipment, people want to feel that connectedness. Maybe less so now in Ontario, now that we're sort of coming out of the lockdown. But during the lockdown, everybody was going to video, and Brian and I talked about this offline in terms of the stats that we saw moving from pay-per-click to social. And it was overwhelming how many people were going to video to get information, especially with respect to family law. We're starting to see that swing back a little bit now, and PPC is picking up. But I think there's a lot of value in video. It's easy. Clients love it. So that would be my tip. I want to thank Billie and Brian Walters as well for joining us today. want to wrap up maybe with some predictions for the future. This could be 18 months to 2 years before a vaccine's available to the public. So predictions for the future and closing comments. You want to start, Billie?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think that right now we can kind of safely assume that through the end of the year, this is a good thing for us to continue to plan on doing. I don't think our courts are really going to go back to the way things were ever. So some changes I think are permanent, regardless of whether or not, you know, COVID-19 goes away. But in terms of timing and lockdown and the danger that's present to us as humans from living through the pandemic, I mean, I think you're right. I think it could easily be a year, 18 months, 2 years.
Right. Brian Galbraith?
Yeah, I heard a podcast with the president of or founder or owner of Shopify, and he said in their office they consider that this pandemic has moved the use of technology from 2020 to 2030. Like it's just accelerated the use of technology. People that were reluctant to use Zoom were forced to learn how to use it. People just started to eat up the technology that's available, and that's been a really positive thing. And I don't think we're going to go backwards with respect to the use of technology. And I think it's a positive thing. But you know, people are naturally social, and when there's an opportunity to gather, eventually, I think they will. You know, I don't think we're going to close our offices completely, our physical offices, and be a virtual firm, because I think people do like human contact, and but it might be a while until we get to that point, and I think that's okay. We're very lucky. We're very lucky to be in this profession. You know, so many people are really suffering and not able to run their businesses at all, and here we are. It's a privilege to be able to work from home, and not everyone else is in that situation. So I think we're going to do okay in our profession, and we'll just have to get used to this new way of interacting.
We're lucky also, Brian, because the three of us had built up a culture of working remotely. So it was a really easy transition where we had other professionals and colleagues shutter their offices and basically ground to a halt. So other than maybe a bump or two in terms of improving our network or buying laptops for our team members and maybe webcams, we have, everybody here has shown a lot of leadership and for other businesses in terms of how you can continue to operate during a pandemic. What I'm seeing a lot more is people are installing internet at their cottages, on their boats, in their RVs, and they're working from those locations. Brian and I have had meetings where I've taken off my background and I'm on my boat in the middle of the lake somewhere, but it's fantastic, right? You still wear a shirt and tie, you still present the meeting professionally, but you don't even need to be in your home anymore. So I think that's going to be
we installed a Wi-Fi booster on our boathouse so that we can be down by the lake and and still connected through the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and I'm searching remote satellite Wi-Fi as well. It's a little bit expensive, but you can pretty much be anywhere now and run your professional services firm, provided you got a good laptop and a good internet connection. My prediction, I'm hoping this will jolt the court out of using paper. I'm not optimistic. For some reason, the legal profession loves paper. They love files. They love filing things. They love affidavits of service that get filed in paper saying you filed the paper that you're supposed to file. It's really quite absurd. And I don't know if you noticed, Brian, now we're opening up. Now there's new forms we filed to file for the dates that we missed, right? So we seem to always trip ourselves up over this idea of being locked into paper, but hopefully, at least in Ontario, I don't know about you, Billy, I hope that jolts us out of, the 19th century paper-based system. The other interesting thing, a comment I heard from a judge about 6 weeks ago, a lot of criticism with respect to Zoom or Skype and online hearings was this issue of credibility, right? We need to be in person to assess credibility. And this judge ran one of the few Zoom trials that occurred in Ontario. I think it might have been a criminal trial. There's been a handful that have been conducted. And his view was the opposite of everybody's assumption. So he says doing a hearing by Zoom makes findings of credibility easier. You've got a close-up of the person's face. You're right there observing the testimony. In a courtroom, the judge may be 12 or 14 feet away from the witness box, making notes. In terms of demeanor and credibility, his argument was it's easier via Zoom. So I thought that was a really interesting spin on technology, because that was one of the big objections counsel and people were making about electronic hearings, was how do we deal with issues of credibility. So I think we're going to continue to see that evolve in the future. Any final comment though, Billy? Over to you.
No, thank you very much, guys. I got to sign off.
Okay, Brian?
Richard Susskind has recently written a book about the future of the court system, and I'm working my way through it. And what he says is that we're going to have a hybrid system, or what he recommends, what he hopes, is that we'll have a hybrid system where there's people are still going to courts from time to time, but he says court shouldn't be a place; it should be a process.
Right.
And so he sees that there would be a lot of electronic determinations. That meaning just by writing, written materials presented to the court, and the court reviews them and makes a decision. And then a lot will be by video conferencing, and this is a good thing, because it makes the justice more accessible to more people. And so it's a positive thing going forward. It'll be really interesting to see, in a few years, we'll be looking back going, oh, do you remember Zoom? That was such an archaic system. We've come so far away from that. At least I hope we will, and there'll be so many more developments that will make it so that justice is more accessible to more people, and more affordable, and more efficient.
Or we'll be looking back and saying, remember when we used to have 4 or 5 story courthouses with courtrooms and people in it? That could be a thing of the past too, maybe not. So I want to thank our listeners on Family Law Now for tuning in today. I certainly want to thank our viewers on our YouTube channel for tuning in. If you like this, you can share the video with your friends. There's a bell at the bottom for YouTube video watchers. You can subscribe to our upcoming videos. There'll be a comment box at the bottom. We endeavor to answer everybody's comments at the end of each week. Please leave your comments and we'll try to get to them. Look for us on our Family Law Now site. You can see show notes to today's show. Thank you, Brian, for joining us today. I'm Russell Alexander. Be safe, everyone.
Thanks a lot.